Hey YouTube, HotSauceZee here. Today's video is about tweaking your FOV and sensitivity to help improve your ability to win gunfights. This video is based around Battlefield, but the principles behind it all apply to most FPS games. In the last 2 weeks or so, I was feeling very frustrated with my gameplay and the kind of rounds I was having, so I decided that it was time to take a look at some recordings of my games and see what was going on. What I discovered was that while I was managing a higher sensitivity fairly well, when it came time to ADS, my aim would actually drift back and forth over a target in a constant state of over-aiming, causing me to miss shots and ultimately lose more gunfights than I should have. It was evident to me that this was something I needed to fix, so I headed to the practice range to figure some things out. Now, I'm a console player for those that were unaware, and my sensitivity settings were at 65% soldier aim and 50% soldier zoom aim with uniform soldier aiming on, as well as an FOV of 74. I have been playing like this for several months now, and I've had some very good rounds, but I happened to look at my KD on the tracker network, and it was averaging 1.24, a number too low for my liking. I used to make excuses and chalk this up to my earlier days in BF5 dragging the average down when I had a KD of 0.74. But I've been over 1 for months now, and that excuse is not really valid any longer, so it was more than time to take a deep dive and begin to really analyze my own gameplay to see where the shortcomings were. There's a lot of different aspects of any one person's gameplay that can be improved, but I felt that starting with a good base and really learning what sensitivity I needed was best. The rest can follow once I get that locked down. So how did I do it? Well, before I ever even began to learn what sensitivity I really need, I wanted to ensure that my FOV was truly where I wanted it, because by nature, it will affect your sensitivity as well. I long ago set my FOV to the 74/90 that I saw recommended in the Broken Machines settings guide here on YouTube. Many of you have probably seen that same guide, and don't mistake me for knocking it at all here. It's a great guide, but I wish that I had not followed it quite to the letter like I did back when I was new. See, FOV is a very subjective setting, and what is right for one person may be completely wrong for another. It's something that you really have to sort of understand what it's changing before you can begin to tweak it to better align with your own playstyle. Dazs has a video where he talks about FOV, which really inspired me to take a look at my own. I'll be sure to link it below in the description. Okay guys, I know I'm getting a bit long-winded here, so here's what I did to my FOV. I dropped it from the Broken Machines suggested 74 back to the default 55. In the video here, you can see what that change does. It zooms your aim in a noticeable amount, as you can see on the targets that I'm aiming at, but it limits what you can see to the sides in your peripheral. Why did I do this? I thought back upon hours and hours of playtime with the FOV at 74, and remembered wanting to use a few of the 1x and 1.5x sights, but always felt that I was struggling to see my opponents if they were anything more than 15 meters away. I would always compensate for this by slapping the 3x sights back on, but with that, you get more recoil through the sight, which frustrated me. So, the solution for me is to drop the FOV. This strategy may not work for you. Like I say, it's a subjective setting and will really depend on your playstyle. Do you prefer to feel as if you're moving more quickly and have more peripheral view? Or do you like to really be able to see what's in front of you, but lose a bit of that peripheral vision and speed? It's a trade-off that you have to find where, on the sliding scale, you prefer that matches your ability and gameplay style. For me, I'll be trying 55 for a while to see what that does for me. If I begin to notice that I'm dying a lot due to people being just out of my view, then I may adjust it in the future. So, with my FOV adjusted back to default, I then began to adjust my sensitivity to see where it needed to be. The default in Battlefield 5, I believe, is 20% soldier aim with a 100% soldier zoom aim. Since I brought the FOV back to baseline, I figured it would be a good idea to bring the sensitivities back to their default as well. Now, going into this change, I knew that 20 would feel starkly different than the 65 I was used to, and it did, but that's not the worst thing, because I had to remember why I was doing all this in the first place. It's because my gameplay wasn't where I wanted it to be. So maybe that muscle memory I had was not doing me any favors. With sensitivities, it's very important to stick with one and not change it too frequently or when you start tilting. This does help in building muscle memory and will help you improve over time. Well, okay, Hot Sauce. You just said you changed yours. What gives? The reason I decided to change mine is because I never really put the work in to find which sensitivity matched me and my natural ability. I heard that the pros and the top players use high sensitivities, so I set mine to that and went about trying to just manage that speed and touchiness. It has its benefits, but that over-aiming I was talking about at the beginning of the video is a result of me being unable to manage that high of a speed. And let me tell you this, that's okay. Just because you can't manage a 100% sensitivity doesn't make you a bad player. The best sensitivity for you is the sensitivity that allows you to be the most lethal on the battlefield. Who cares if it looks cool, or that's what such and such pro player uses? If it's not for you, then it's not for you, and that's fine. That's not to say it never will, because there are ways to train yourself into higher sensitivities, but I think that getting the best you can at the sensitivity that resonates with your natural ability is the best way to build a strong foundation that you can slowly improve upon over time. Okay, so back to the process more than the thought behind it. With all of that reasoning out of the way, we're at a sensitivity of 20% and a zoom aim of 100. Now what? Well, in the practice range, fire up a method to record your gameplay, and then just start to move around the practice range a bit. Get a feel for the turn speed at 20. For me, it felt very slow, but I made my way over to the wall with the smiley face on it. This, and the other area in front of it, angle practice, can be used to really hone in your sensitivity. For this video, let's use the wall. Turn it on, and just practice snapping to and shooting those AT mine deals that pop up on the wall, at first on easy. Start slow. If you find that on your snap, you are constantly not making it to the target, then your sensitivity is too low. Raise it by 5 and try again. If you're constantly snapping past it, then your sensitivity is too high. Lower it down 5 and try again. The same concept applies for your zoom aim, except it's a bit more tricky because you really have to pay attention to it after you ADS. This is why the recording is important, because it will allow you to check your work afterwards in a frame-by-frame method. Keep repeating the above process until you find that when you snap to the target and zoom in, that your crosshair is pretty much on point, only needing minimal adjustment. I also encourage you to try it while stationary and while strafing back and forth to find a sensitivity that works for both, since you will be doing both in a live multiplayer round. After I did this myself and gradually upped the speed, I found that a soldier aim of 30 and a zoom aim of 50 was my best combination. I've found that I prefer the ADS speed to be slower myself, and often will use it as a break of sort when I begin to aim onto a target. That's just my particular playstyle, and these settings seem to work for that. But look at how drastically different I landed from my original settings. If you recall, I was at 65%. That's more than double what I landed on. As you can imagine, that much of a difference will make a noticeable change in your gameplay. The only thing left now is to hit a live gameplay session and try the settings out. The targets in the practice range are useful, but are predictable compared to a human player. So go jump into a gameplay session, be sure to record if you can so that you can analyze the new settings. Do not be afraid of doing poorly the first few rounds. Your muscle memory is going to try and use your old settings, and you're going to experience some issues at first. Settle in, don't tilt, and use it as a learning experience. If you did the above exercises properly and really honed that sensitivity, the work should begin to show. Be patient. My first round after doing this myself, I tweeted that I went 7 for 12. Yes, it was awful at first, but I hung in there and managed to have several games with 35 or 40 plus kills, which is something I've been unable to do in months. I was skeptical of my own process on this, but was pleasantly surprised to find that there was a noticeable improvement in my gameplay. In fact, the video you have been seeing in the background is composed of clips from that first day of the new settings. I found that while the speed of my snaps was much slower, they were much more controlled, which made me faster. It's a bit of a paradox, but since I was no longer weaving my aim back and forth over a target, I was able to more easily just snap to them, make the minor adjustments, and then take them down. The extra control also gave me more of a chance in those 2v1 situations. Needless to say, I'm pleased with the results, and I hope that you will be as well. If you're a player that is seeking to improve your gameplay to the best that it can possibly be, then you must get in the mindset of taking responsibility for the shortcomings on your stats. There really isn't room to make excuses, and it's up to you to be self-aware and find the problems with your mechanics and strategy. You have to be able to be self-critical and not blame your teammates or the game for a bad round. Use those lopsided servers and games as a learning tool. Don't rage quit, and use the tough situation as a way to really test yourself and build your skill set. That way, the next time that particular situation arises, you'll be more prepared. I hope I didn't get too long-winded for you guys on this one. I really wanted to dive into what I'm doing as a player to improve and share the journey with you guys so that hopefully it can help someone else out too. Your mechanics are a fundamental part of how you play, so make sure that they are aligned with your own natural capability as well as your playstyle. Well, that will wrap up today's video. I really hope that you guys found some value from these steps that I have taken to improve my own game. If you did, please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment below anything that you have found to improve your game. I also hope that you consider sharing this video with anyone you may know who wants to take a deep dive into their sensitivity and FOV. This has been HotSauceZee, and I'll see you guys out on the battlefield.